Good Tuesday afternoon, everybody. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with your tropical update on this August 24th, 2021. No named systems out in the Atlantic Basin right now, but we have 3 areas to watch, 3 investigative areas, well, 2 officially. I have an asterisk there, 99L, because it is yet to be designated as an invest so far. So here's the latest out in the basin. As I just mentioned, no name systems right now. Our last one was Henri. That's still kind of dissipating over interior portions of New England and the Northeast. Those tropical disturbances are out there, 3 of them, and overall, environmental conditions are turning more favorable. Even though there's lots of Saharan dust out there, we're in an unfavorable phase of the MJO. That's all expected to change for the more favorable options there, allowing for these tropical systems to facilitate and gain strength and organize a lot quicker. Of course, climatology favors this as well. We're getting close to the peak of the season, which is September 10th, September 11th. A quick refresher on exactly what I'm talking about. What does it mean, an invest? Well, invest is short for investigative area. 97, 98, and eventually 99 that are currently out there. Well, that's a cycle from 90 to 99, and then we just reuse them. The L at the end of that just indicates that this investigative area is located in the Atlantic Basin. If it was in the Eastern Pacific, they would have an E at the end of it. All right, so here's the overall look at what's going on in the Atlantic. After quieting down for like 12 to 18 hours, we saw couple waves start to flare on up out there, one of which has a high chance, invest 97L in the longer term, within 5 days of developing. You can see where that's heading into the middle of the open Atlantic, so not so much of a concern. Another wave here far out to the east in the eastern portions of the Atlantic. Low chances both in the short and long term, up to 30% within 5 days. That's also not so much of a concern right now. The wave in the eastern portions of the Caribbean, though, still just a tropical wave, will likely get designated as Invest 99L in the short term, has 10% within 2 days, but a 60% chance within 5 days. Where it's located, highly favorable for development here, and the models are really having a field day with exactly what this turns into in the long range as it enters the Gulf of Mexico by the weekend and early next week. The next 3 storm names that are up: Ida, Julian, and Kate. I want to talk a second about the I names, because the I names hold the record for being retired the most. Since 1955, there have been 39 I name storms. Of those, 12 have been retired. And you can see the list here, a lot of famous names, you could say. Irma, 2017, last year, the first Greek letter ever to be retired. Iota, only the second time the Greek alphabet was ever used. It was a Cat 4. Ingrid, Irene, Ike, Isabel, Ivan, the I names. So this year, the I name is Ida. It replaced Isabel, which was one of the retired names in 2003. It replaced it on its 6-year cycle. So its first use was in 2009. That first time Ida came around, it became a Cat 2 in 2009. The second time around in 2015, it was a tropical storm. So this time around, when it's being used in 2021, we'll see what it becomes if, in fact, it does get one of those tropical wave names. So what is it about the I names? Why are they the most retired out of all the letters we use for the alphabet for naming tropical systems? Well, here are the 12 retired I names. I want you to take a look at when they developed and when they dissipated. Yeah, it's very uniform here. Most of these are late August, early September. A few anomalies like, where is it? Iota, which developed in November because it wasn't the actual I name. It was the second go around of I names when we entered the Greek alphabet, so it was later on in the season. But the majority of these late August into September. And what is around that date? Well, peak of the hurricane season. The environmental conditions are most conducive for storms that do develop around this time. The 9th named storm, the I name, to gain strength, develop, and possibly become very damaging and very impactful. So that's why the most of those I names are retired 12 times. All right, so let's look at what we're starting with here. This is that tropical wave out in the eastern portions of the Caribbean. 10% chance within 2 days. Within 5 days, it shoots up to 60%, so moderate chances. Let's see how the models do with this. We'll start things off with the European. We'll go to Friday because I don't really expect this to develop much between now and then, but by Friday we could have some sort of a more semblance of a tropical wave developing there. Moving over the Yucatan, still not a whole lot of development, and with that land interaction, it'll probably slow things down. But once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, spend some time over the warm waters, the conducive environmental conditions, the European says, we could have a tropical system here, pretty much due east of Brownsville, southeast of Corpus Christi, and hanging out along the southeast coast of Texas. Very large system, lots of moisture here. The strength of it still yet to be determined. Now let's look at the GFS. The GFS, might I add, had a pretty good track record for the past tropical systems. So here's how it plays it out, and you'll notice things here look very similar to what we just looked at with the European. It is a little bit on the stronger side and a little bit farther to the south, but if you've been paying attention to this model over the past couple of days, especially compared with yesterday, this is a significant jog northwards. Yesterday afternoon's run of this GFS was well to the southern portions of the Bay of Campeche in the southern Gulf of Mexico. So this is jogged north. The European yesterday was much farther north too, and that's come south. So they're falling in line and kind of splitting the difference as it looks right now. Is this exactly what will happen? Probably not. There's a lot of time between now and then, and I will tell you that models have a tough time deciphering where a system will go before it's even formed. We don't have a closed center of circulation to initialize the model on. Once we get that, you'll see much more clarity in these models, much better agreement, and on top of that, all the other computer models, we're just looking at 2, will be on board as well and start to give us more of a consensus, especially once it's designated as an investigative area and once it gets that closed center of circulation as well. Overall, what's looking pretty consistent on a lot of the models is that this would be a very large system with a ton of tropical moisture. So what we're looking at here is PWAT'S, precipitable water values. The amount of moisture available in the atmosphere when you take a column of air from the surface all the way up to around 30,000 feet, compress it, and you squeeze out all the water. And some of these PWAT values are up and over 2, 2.25, 2.5 inches. Extremely moist air, and that means a lot of rainfall likely coming our way through the southeastern coast of the Texas coastline there. Also, the environmental conditions here, the wave right now is sitting over very warm ocean waters, but also the high ocean heat content. That warm water extends down to a depth, and with upwelling, once the storm system gets going, it mixes up the ocean. Typically, if you just have the skin of the ocean being very warm, it'll mix up and upwell cooler waters from the depths. When you've got high ocean heat content here, it's mixing up continuously warm water. So there's a lot of fuel available here for the system to use if, in fact, it does get going and develops into a tropical cyclone in the coming days. Also, what's going on here is the upper air patterns. The steering mechanisms in play in the atmosphere are very, very important this time around. Because when we had a similar system there about a week ago, Grace, we had a huge ridge, a mountain of air over the northern portions of the Gulf of Mexico, the southeast coastline of the United States, southeast coast of Texas. And that created a protective shield, keeping Grace to the south, pushing it on a due west trajectory. Unfortunately, that did impact the Yucatan and then Veracruz in Mexico for a direct landfall of a major Category 3 hurricane. This time around, though, I put this out to Monday afternoon at 4 p.m. You can see the models have the storm farther to the north because even though there's going to be a ridge of high pressure over the southeast, it looks to be rather weak, not nearly as expansive off to the west as we had a week ago. There'll be a similar area of high pressure ridge well to the west, and that means there's a weakness in between the two. And that is an opportunity for the storm to sense that, especially if it's stronger, and track farther to the north. So we really have to keep an eye on how strong this ridge of high pressure is, when it builds westwards, if at all, and where exactly its placement is by the end of the weekend and into next week to see just how far north this system comes, if it comes north at all. A lot of variables still to watch here, so nothing is set in stone. Just check back once a day, see what the forecast is looking like, and see if there's any changes. With the designation of both these other systems out in the Atlantic as investigative areas, we are getting some modeling on it for 97L and 98L. And here's the spaghetti plots on both. 98 looks to do a little loop out into the middle of the Atlantic. Same with 97. Is this set in stone? We've seen this numerous times. Not always the case. So we'll see how the runs look and see how everything plays out as we go forward here. All right, until next time, I know there was a lot of information, but things will get a little bit more clear as we go through the rest of the week and into the weekend. But if you have any questions on any of this, we're always available on social media. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.